The 1915 studio photograph was discovered, and historians were shocked by the symbol carved into the chair. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the Philadelphia Museum of American History, throwing long shadows over Elena Rodriguez's desk. She had worked there as a curator for almost 10 years, focusing on colonial-era items, and she felt she had already seen it all. But when the cardboard box arrived that Tuesday morning, with a handwritten note from an elderly woman named Dorothy Callahan, Elena had no idea her life was going to change. Inside the box, wrapped neatly in tissue paper, lay one photograph. The picture had a sepia tone, its edges a bit worn, but it was surprisingly well kept for something from 1915. Elena lifted it to the light, her breath pausing as she examined the scene. It showed a formal family portrait in what looked like a stylish parlor. A serious-looking man sat in an elaborate wooden chair, sitting straight and proud. Next to him stood a woman in a high-necked lace dress, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. 3 children stood around them, 2 boys wearing matching sailor outfits, and a girl in a white dress with ribbons in her hair. The scene showed wealth and good taste. In the background, Elena noticed details of the room: Persian rugs, oil paintings in gold frames, thick velvet curtains around tall windows, crystal chandeliers catching the light, and polished mahogany furniture. This was obviously a well-off family caught in a moment of comfort and success. But the chair pulled Elena's attention. The chair where the father sat with such clear pride. She picked up her magnifying glass, her hands shaking slightly as she brought the photo closer. The chair looked special even for rich homes in 1915. Mahogany, she thought, noticing the deep grain visible even in the old image. The arms had fine carvings, and the legs showed smooth, skilled curves. Then she spotted it. Elena's heart beat faster as she looked at the backrest of the chair, adjusting the glass until every detail was sharp. Carved into the wooden top, right behind the man's head, was a symbol she had seen only once before in her studies of American constitutional history: a half-sun with rays pointing upward, rising over a horizon line. "It can't be," Elena whispered, her thoughts racing. She set the magnifying glass down and grabbed her phone, scrolling until she found the number for Dr. Marcus Williams, the museum's top expert on 18th century American furniture. Her finger paused a moment before she pressed call. The phone rang twice before Marcus answered. "Elena, what's happening?" "Marcus, come to my office right away," she said, unable to hide her excitement. "I think I've found something that shouldn't exist." "Something that shouldn't exist? What do you mean?" Elena glanced at the photograph again, at the wealthy family posed so carefully, the man sitting on something impossible. "I think I'm seeing the rising sun chair in a private home." Marcus Williams arrived at Elena's office in minutes, his gray hair messy from rushing through the museum halls. At 63, he had spent his whole career studying American furniture. Elena knew that if anyone could confirm or deny her idea, it was him. "Show me," he said, breathing hard. Elena handed him the photograph and the magnifying glass. Watching his face as he looked closely, she saw his eyebrows lift, then crease, then lift again. He moved the glass back and forth, examining every part of the carved chair under the seated man. "Where did this come from?" Marcus asked, his voice low. "It was donated this morning by Dorothy Callahan. Her note said it belonged to her family. She found it while cleaning her attic." Marcus set the glass down and walked to the window, looking out at the city. "You know what this means if it's real, don't you? It means a copy of the rising sun chair was in someone's private home in 1915, and no one knew. The original rising sun chair was one of the most important objects in American history. George Washington sat in it during the Constitutional Convention of 1787 in Independence Hall, only a few blocks away. The chair's special carved sun had become a sign of hope and fresh starts for the new country. Benjamin Franklin had spoken about it, saying he wondered during the convention if the sun was rising or setting, and after the Constitution was signed, he decided it was rising. The original chair still existed, carefully kept in Independence Hall where visitors could see it behind glass, but the idea that someone had ordered a private copy and showed it so clearly in a family portrait was completely unknown to historians. "Look how he's sitting," Marcus said, returning to the photo. This isn't relaxed. He's placed himself on purpose to show the chair. The photographer made sure the carved sun was in view. This was done deliberately. Elena looked again. Marcus was right. Everything in the picture focused on the chair, the man's centered position, the camera angle, even the light that seemed to highlight the carved backrest. This family wanted that symbol to be noticed. We need to find out who these people were, Marcus said, and why they had this chair in their home. Elena picked up Dorothy Callahan's note again, reading the shaky writing. She had left a phone number. "I'll call her this afternoon." "Do it now," Marcus urged. "If this is genuine, it changes everything we thought we knew about the chair and its meaning to regular people." Dorothy Callahan's voice sounded thin but clear over the phone, carrying the experience of 92 years. She lived in a small row house in Fishtown, about 20 minutes from the museum. When Elena asked if she could visit that afternoon, Dorothy said yes immediately. "I've been wondering if anyone would care about that old picture," she said. "My children wanted to throw it away when we cleaned out things, but something told me to keep it." Elena and Marcus arrived at Dorothy's home just after 3 o'clock. The house was small but very neat, with lace curtains in the windows and a tiny front garden where late autumn flowers still bloomed. Dorothy opened the door herself, a small woman with silver hair in a neat bun and sharp blue eyes that saw everything. Come in," she said, leading them into a living room full of family photos. "Would you like some tea?" "That would be nice, thank you," Elena said, though she was eager to ask questions. While Dorothy went to the kitchen, Elena noticed framed photos on the mantel, a young woman from the 1940s in a wedding dress, and a man in a military uniform from the same time. Dorothy returned with tea and cookies, sitting in an armchair with a satisfied sigh. "So you want to know about that photograph?" "Yes, please," Elena said, opening her notebook. "Can you tell us who these people are?" Dorothy took the photograph Elena brought. She touched the glass gently, a sad smile on her face. "That's my great-grandfather, William Hartley. He was a successful banker in Philadelphia. The woman beside him is my great-grandmother, Catherine. The children are their 3, William J. R., Robert, and little Elizabeth." "Do you know when this was taken?" Marcus asked. "Spring of 1915, Dorothy said. "My grandmother Elizabeth. They had to sit completely still for nearly an hour while the photographer set up in their parlor. She was only 7 and wanted to move, but her mother told her to stay still." Elena leaned closer. "Dorothy, do you know anything about the chair your great-grandfather is sitting on?" "My grandmother mentioned it once. She said it was her father's most treasured thing, but she never really understood why. After he died in 1932, the chair vanished. No one in the family knew what happened to it." "Did she say where it came from?" Elena asked softly. Dorothy paused, her fingers tracing the photo's edge. "She said it was a gift from someone important, but she was just a child then, and later her mother wouldn't talk about it." Marcus looked at Elena. "Dorothy, would you mind if we researched your great-grandfather's background? We might find records that explain the chair." "Please do," Dorothy said. "I'd like to know the truth before I pass away." The next morning, Elena stood in the archives of the First Pennsylvania Bank, which had taken over several smaller banks, including Hartley and Sons Bank, where William Hartley had built his wealth. The archivist, a careful woman named Patricia Hang, had brought out many boxes of family business records. The Hartleys were important in Philadelphia banking from 1880 to 1933, Patricia explained, placing a thick ledger down. William Hartley Sr. started the bank, and his son, William Jr., ran it after him. It failed during the Depression like many others, but the family had other investments and stayed fairly well off with other banks. It was interesting for Philadelphia's money history, but nothing explained the strange chair. Then, in a box labeled Personal Correspondence, 1910 to 1920, she found something useful. A letter from February 1915 on thick paper with an embossed header, Harrison Family Trust, Philadelphia. Elena's heart beat faster. She had heard that name in her research on Philadelphia's giving families. She read it slowly. "Dear Mr. Hartley, on behalf of the Harrison family, I thank you for your careful handling and honesty in managing the trust for our special project. As we discussed, creating this replica needs not only skilled craftsmen, but also someone who understands its deeper meaning. Your family's support for American values and your trusted nature make you the perfect keeper for this piece. When finished, the chair will be delivered to your home as thanks and a sign of trust. We ask only that you keep it safe with the same care and silence you have shown. Signed, Jonathan Harrison III. Elena leaned back, her mind racing. William Hartley had not just owned a copy of the Rising Sun chair. He had helped make it happen. He managed the money, kept it secret, and got the chair as his reward. She called Marcus. I found the connection. William Hartley handled the finances for the replica. The Harrison family ordered it, but Hartley paid and received the chair as thanks. That explains why it was in his home, Marcus said. But not what happened after 1932. I know, Elena said, staring at the remaining papers. But I'll find out. Elena spent the next 3 days deep in records, following the Hartley family after William's death in 1932. The Great Depression made it hard. The family sold their big house on Rittenhouse Square in 1934 to a company that turned it into offices. The building changed owners many times and was now luxury apartments. But no record. DS mentioned furniture sales or moves. Marcus suggested finding descendants of the children. With Dorothy's family details, Elena located Robert Hartley's grandson, retired Professor David Hartley in Boston. Elena called him that evening. David was unsure at first, but when she described the photo and chair, his voice changed. My father told me about that chair, David said quietly. He said his grandfather loved it more than anything. When he died, the children argued over it. My grandfather Robert wanted it, but William Jr. said it should be his as the oldest. What happened? Elena asked. Elizabeth, the daughter, solved it. She was only 24, but the smartest. She convinced them the chair was too important to stay with one person. It should be kept safe somewhere it could be protected and valued. Do you know where she took it? My father said she gave it to someone she trusted completely, someone who would understand its value, but he never said who. Elizabeth made the family promise never to tell. She worried someone might steal it or claim it belonged to the government. Elena thanked him and started researching Elizabeth Hartley. Unlike her brothers in banking and business, Elizabeth became a historian and preservationist, one of the early members of the Philadelphia Historical Society. The idea hit Elena hard. If Elizabeth loved saving history and needed to hide something valuable, where better to put it? She grabbed her coat. Marcus looked up surprised. Where are you going? Philadelphia Historical Society, Elena called. I think Elizabeth hid the chair in plain sight. The Philadelphia Historical Society was in a lovely 19th century townhouse in Society Hill, near Independence Hall. Elena had visited many times, but never thought to check for Hartley connections. Head archivist James Chin greeted her warmly. When she explained, his eyes widened. Elizabeth Hartley was one of our most important early donors, James said, leading her down to the basement archives. She gave a lot in the 1930s and 1940s, especially Revolutionary War items and early furniture. James took her to a section marked Hartley Collection. Restricted access. Restricted? Elena asked. James nodded. Elizabeth put special rules on some donations, some not for public display. Others needed special permission. One item was sealed until a certain date. Elena held her breath. What date? James checked a thick binder. Item H237, mahogany chair, 18th century style. Donated by Elizabeth Hartley, 1935. Sealed until January 1st, 2025. That's next month. Elena whispered. Since it's late November, only about 5 weeks away, James said. It's in our secure vault downstairs. Can we see it? Elena asked. James hesitated. We should wait, but given what you've found and how carefully you've traced it, I think we can make an exception. Let me get the keys. They went deeper to a windowless room with a heavy vault door. James opened it. Inside were shelves and covered items. James checked his list and went to a corner. Item H237. They removed the tarp together. The rising sun chair stood there, its mahogany glowing under the lights. Nearly 90 years of careful storage had kept it perfect. The carved sun seemed to shine, just like in the 1915 photo. Elena touched the smooth wood with shaking fingers. This chair had seen a different history. A family's pride, a secret project, a wise woman saving her father's treasure. Behind the seat, in a carved space, she found an envelope marked to be opened with the chair. Inside was Elizabeth Hartley's 1935 letter. Elena sat on a stool, James beside her, as she opened it carefully. The paper was still crisp, the ink clear, written in elegant script with a fountain pen. To whoever finds this chair and reads these words, I am Elizabeth Hartley, daughter of William Hartley. I write this in autumn 1935, as our country faces its worst economic crisis. My father died 3 years ago, leaving me part of his estate and the weight of a secret he kept for nearly 20 years. This chair is an exact replica of the rising sun chair President Washington used in the 1787 Constitutional Convention. My father did not order it, but he helped make it possible as banker and trustee for the Harrison family, who planned it in 1915. I was 7 when our family portrait was taken with father in this chair. I remember his pride, how he sat carefully so the photographer could capture the carved sun behind his head. I didn't understand then why furniture mattered so much. Later, father explained its meaning. Jonathan Harrison III ordered the copy as a sign of faith in America's future during the Great War in Europe. The original chair stood for the nation's beginning, the moment Benjamin Franklin decided the sun was rising. Harrison wanted another chair, as a private reminder that the sun still rises in hard times. Father managed the money and kept it secret. He received the chair as thanks for his silence and his belief in American values. After father's death, my brothers and I disagreed about the chair. William wanted to keep it at home. Robert wanted to sell it. I believed neither was right. The chair means more than family pride or money. It stands for the faith of Harrison and my father in American democracy. It should be protected as proof of that faith, not kept private. I donated it to the Philadelphia Historical Society with the condition it stays sealed for 90 years, until 2025. By then, time will have passed so it can be studied and valued for what it is, not a fake. Boo. A careful act of preserving history by skilled workers during a time of world trouble. I hope whoever opens this vault understands what the chair meant to those who made and guarded it. And I hope you see, as Benjamin Franklin did, that the sun is always rising if we have enough faith to believe it. Elizabeth Hartley, October 15th, 1935. Elena read it aloud, her voice full of emotion. James stood quietly, clearly moved. She was protecting it, James said, not hiding it, protecting it until people could understand. Elena nodded, folding the letter carefully. And now the time has come. With the letter and chair now available, Elena went back to the question of who built it. The 1915 photo showed the family, but nothing about the maker. She visited Dorothy again. Did your great-grandmother Catherine ever mention who made the chair, or where it came from? Dorothy thought, tapping her teacup. There was something. Wait. She returned with a small wooden box. My grandmother gave me this before she died. It has letters from her mother. Inside were letters tied with old ribbons. Dorothy handed them over. I never read them all. They felt too personal, but maybe they'll help. Most were ordinary, but one from August 1915 to her sister stood out. William is so happy with the chair that arrived last month. He says it represents everything he believes about this country. The craftsman came yesterday to check it survived the trip from their workshop. Interesting men, all immigrants, William said. One from Ireland, one from Italy, one from Russia. They spoke little English, but their pride showed in every move. The Italian man, Mr. Rossi, I think, actually cried seeing it in our parlor, calling it the finest thing he ever made. William paid them well and made them promise silence. Some things are too precious to share. With the world. Elena's hands shook. The craftsmen, Thomas Brennan, Giovanni Rossi, Jacob Friedman, had delivered the chair themselves. Now she had names, and could trace their lives. The next week was full of research, immigration records, city directories, family databases. Slowly their stories appeared. Thomas Brennan arrived from County Cork, Ireland in 1889, escaping poverty. He learned carpentry from his father and opened a successful Philadelphia workshop by 1900. Giovanni Rossi left southern Italy in 1895, bringing old family woodcarving skills. Jacob Friedman fled religious persecution in Russia in 1902, arriving with only tools and talent. These men, with others now forgotten, combined their skills to create something remarkable. They studied the original chair in Independence Hall, took exact measurements, chose the best mahogany, carved every detail carefully, and built a perfect copy, all in secret, knowing it would stay in a private home, not a museum. Elena felt moved by their story, immigrants finding opportunity in America and showing thanks through their craft. 3 months later, on a cold January morning in 2025, the Philadelphia Museum of American History prepared one of its biggest exhibitions. Elena had worked hard to gather everything: the replica chair on loan, the 1915 photo, Catherine's letters, Elizabeth's 1935 letter, Harrison family documents, and craftsmen's immigration records. The exhibition was called Two Suns Rising: The Hidden History of America's Most Important Chair. News coverage was huge after the announcement. National outlets reported it. Historians discussed its meaning. Thousands requested opening day tickets. Marcus stood with Elena in the gallery an hour before opening, both tired but excited. The space told the story step by step. Visitors began with the 1787 Constitutional Convention display, seeing images of he original chair, and Franklin's quote about the sun. Then came the 1915 section, where the replica sat in a case, zipped like the Hartley parlor. The enlarged family photo showed every detail, including William Hartley's proud face. Walls explained its creation, Harrison's order, Hartley's role, the immigrant craftsman, Elizabeth's wise decision to preserve it. The final part covered its lasting meaning. What it said that private people in 1915 valued American symbols enough to create and protect this copy, and that Elizabeth sealed it for 90 years, trusting future generations would understand. Dorothy Callahan arrived early with family. At 92, she moved slowly, but her eyes shone. Elena guided her through, watching her pause at the large photo of her great-grandparents and their children. "I wish Grandmother Elizabeth could see this," Dorothy said softly. "She would be so happy the story is finally told." "She made it possible," Elena replied. "Without her planning, the chair might have been lost long ago." Doors opened at 10 o'clock. Elena watched visitors move through, reading, looking, stopping at the chair with wonder. Parents explained to children. Quiet conversations filled the air. One moment stayed with her. An elderly man, perhaps in his 80s, stood long before the chair, tears falling. He approached Elena. "My grandfather was Giovanni Rossi," he said, voice breaking. "I never knew he worked on something like this. We knew he was a great carver, but not that he helped create something so important. Thank you for finding this story. Thank you for honoring him." Elena hugged him, tears in her eyes. This was why it mattered, not just for history, but for families discovering their ancestors' role in something meaningful. 6 months later, Elena stood in Independence Hall, in the room of the 1787 convention. She spoke to National Park Service rangers who guided 2 hours there. The original rising sun chair sat behind its barrier, its carved sun catching afternoon light from tall windows. Elena had been there many times, but today felt different. She saw it as part of a larger story about belief, preservation, and symbols power. The replica's discovery shows how later Americans connected to the founding time, Elena told the rangers. In 1915, with World War I in Europe and uncertainty everywhere, private people decided the rising sun symbol needed to be saved and copied. They weren't officials or museum people, just a banker, a philanthropist, and immigrant craftsman. But they knew the symbol mattered. She showed the famous 1915 photo of the Hartley family around the chair. William Hartley ordered this portrait to record the chair. He sat so the carved sun showed clearly. It wasn't vanity. It was proof. He was saying, "We believe in what this stands for. We believe the sun is still rising." After speaking, Elena walked slowly around Independence Hall, thinking of the journey. It began with a photo in a box, and an old woman's choice to keep it. It led through archives, letters, immigrant and wealthy family stories, 90 years of hidden history. The replica now stayed permanently in the Philadelphia Museum of American History, drawing crowds. More importantly, its story started discussions about American identity, immigration, skilled work, and how ordinary people save what they value. Elena received letters from descendants of Thomas Brennan, Giovanni Rossi, and Jacob Friedman. Each family was touched to learn their ancestors' part. Some donated family items to the museum. The Harrison family shared more papers showing Jonathan Harrison III's reasons. In his diary he wrote, "The original chair belongs to history and the people, but individual citizens may need our own symbols to remember our duty to this nation." The replica is not a copy. It is a promise. Leaving Independence Hall that evening, Elena thought of Franklin's question. Was the sun rising or setting? Its power was that every generation must answer it. In 1787, Franklin saw it rising. In 1915, Harrison and Hartley chose to see it rising. In 1935, Elizabeth saved that choice. In 2005, museum visitors could stand before photo and chair and ask the same question. The answer wasn't carved in wood, though the symbol stayed. It lived in choices: to create, protect, honor, believe. Elena looked once more at the photo on her phone. 5 people frozen in time. A banker, his wife, 3 children around a chair that meant more than fine work. It meant hope. It meant choosing to believe that despite wars, crises, and uncertainty, the sun was still rising. She thought of the craftsman pouring skill and faith into every detail. Of Elizabeth, wise at 24 to know some things needed time. Of Dorothy, trusting her instinct to keep the photo. All helped preserve the story. Now it would continue, told to new generations standing before the replica chair, seeing its carved sun as a reminder. Every generation must choose, rising or setting. Elena walked Philadelphia streets as evening fell, past Independence Hall, toward the museum where the replica waited in its lit case. The real sun set behind the skyline in orange and gold, but tomorrow it would rise again, and both chairs would keep asking their quiet question. The answer, Elena knew, was always the same. It had to be. The sun was rising. It would always rise, as long as people believed it and worked to make it so.